Hello folks, welcome back to Banta Music. Today's topic is about what age a person should be in order to make the learning process as smooth and efficient as possible. There are several theories about this, so let's look at a few of them and discuss them. If you like this video, consider giving it a like and subscribe to the channel if you would like to see what the next available content is. Now, there's a little bit of discrepancy about what age children should be in order to learn bagpipes. From my experience, learning at 6 or 7 can be a little bit difficult because they're at that age where retaining information in memory is a little bit more challenging and they tend to forget things a little quicker. People say that children are sponges, which is not incorrect. But when it comes to learning music and such a technical and complex instrument such as the bagpipes, it's probably more advisable to me if you wait till the child is 8 or 9. Now, you may think that that's a little bit on the later side, but frankly, a lot of people would probably argue that 8 or 9 years old will actually be a good age where the child will remember more of what is covered in a lesson. For example, I had one student who was 6, and learning the scale took about 3 or 4 times longer than a student that was 8 or 9 that would probably learn it in a fraction of the time. So that part alone can be hit or miss depending on the different points about each child, like memory and personality and stuff like that, and how motivated they are. And we'll talk about motivation in just a moment. The next point is consistency. This one is huge, and I'm not talking about making your phrases in a tune consistent. It's not that. Consistency with lessons and the frequency of the lessons. So if you have lessons 4 times a month, that would be essentially equivalent of one lesson per week. That is honestly the most effective and efficient way of teaching pipes, and it will help to ensure that the student is on the right path, and any bad habits that they pick up through self-practice can be corrected quicker instead of later on, which will make them harder to be reversed. If you give lessons twice a month, every 2 weeks, then that is still relatively okay because it's still going over things at a relatively consistent pace, and bad habits can still be corrected. If it's once a month, then you're really getting into that gray area where it really depends how much the person can retain in memory, and ensuring that if they're not sure about something, that they get in touch with you about whether or not they're performing the movement or the grace notes or notes correctly. So that can really be hit or miss. So the consistency with the lessons is extremely important, and I encourage you as teachers to ensure that you work with the students to find a schedule that works properly for them, while keeping in mind and advising them that the more consistent lessons they have, the better off that they will be able to retain the information. Next, motivation. Motivation is very crucial because intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, wanting to learn the instrument yourself versus having somebody else influence you to learn the instrument, is very important. Say a child sees a pipe band in a parade and they say, "Mommy, mommy," or "Daddy, daddy, I want to go play bagpipes." That is technically intrinsic motivation. If the parent goes, "Hey, would you like to go learn bagpipes?" and the child goes, I don't know. Maybe I can try it." That's a little bit of both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and nothing wrong with that. If it's extrinsic, like the child really does not want to learn, and it's the parent or guardian's influence that is driving the child to learn, then that's completely different, and that will have a heavy impact on how the child learns with the pipes, and it'll probably take them a lot longer to learn because they're just not into it. So be wary of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Try to ensure that the child is the one who really wants to learn the music, and it's not somebody else, another external influence that is affecting their eagerness to learn. Now, the next point, it kind of ties in with age, and that's concentration. Concentration will vary from every single child, even if the child is a sibling of another student that you teach. If the child's concentration is really lacking, find what makes the child tick. Maybe they like to talk about Roblox or Minecraft or whatever. I try to talk about a couple of different things to get the child's mind to get redirected into something that really catches their attention. If it's not quite pipes that day, it happens. And then once the child's enthusiasm has gone back up for another subject, then bring them back into maybe learning the scale or doublings if that's what you're on, and try that out and see what it does with their concentration. I've had days where the student has had issues with concentration. They're just not quite into it, and maybe they were a few minutes late. It's happened, and I've said, I'm sorry, I can't stay for the whole time. So it would be very helpful if our concentration could be a little bit better right now, so we can cover more stuff and then do more cool stuff later on. Keyword cool. That usually will get them to say, oh, my concentration's off. Maybe they don't even realize it. It's amazing what we don't realize as humans until somebody else points it out. The next point is structure. You need to be able to have structure, especially with teaching young kids. Kids in schools, for example, thrive on structure. Classrooms and curriculums are structured to the T. This is so that children, especially younger children like 7 or 8, will have an idea of what's to come. So, for example, if I want to go over something with them, like maybe I want to get into grips or D throws, I'll give them a bit of a heads up that I want to start going over these topics with them so that they can mentally prepare and say to themselves, so we're going to start doing this now. Let's get our brain in that state where we're ready to take on another thing, or maybe review it if you've done it earlier. Structure is very, very important. So having a curriculum or a set way of teaching, like a series of events or stages of music that you're working on with them. Start them out with a scale and then go on to grace notes and then doublings, for example. If you do that and work with them and let them know what is going to come up, and especially with praise, that is extremely beneficial. So as I said in the last section, I mentioned the word praise. Praise is extremely crucial. If you don't tell a student off and on that they are doing well, they played this well, and then focus on the constructive points, they could assume that what they're doing is not correct, and they may try to adjust. And then you could subconsciously begin pointing out what is happening that shouldn't be happening. So when I teach, I try to point out places where they are playing well. Maybe their doublings are really good. They're not too tight. They're not too open. They're just right. And then I point out what they need to work on so that they are hearing positive and then they're hearing constructive. Notice I say constructive instead of negative. The word negative will not carry a good connotation to it. Constructive means that there's room to improve and they have the ability to do it. The next point is a good tutor book. My goodness. A good tutor book like the one I have will help the student to, in a way, self-learn in conjunction with your own in-person or virtual lessons. If they have a good tutor book that is structured properly and you know that the book has good quality lessons in it and exercises, then you know that the student is in good hands because they have something to look at when they're not taking a lesson from you on the same day. So you could ask them to look at page 10 and say, this is what's going to be on page 10. I would like you to review it. If you have any questions, please get back to me. I say this all the time with my students. If they have any questions about what the book has that maybe they're not sure about how to do something or play a movement, they get a hold of you and say, I'm looking at this page. Is this what the page is? Maybe I'm interpreting properly or improperly rather. And then you can reply back to them saying, this is what the page is. Maybe it's an affirmation that what they're interpreting it in the page is really correct. So these are the points for teaching that I think are very important, and as I said, the age of the child is crucial when teaching children. And if the person is older than a child, say like let's say older than 14 or something, then the person will not have much trouble or shouldn't have much trouble learning how to play pipes, especially if they have a proper teacher who knows what they're doing. And if you're even getting into teaching, then consider taking some of the points that I've mentioned with you, and hopefully they will help you to become a better teacher. I'm constantly trying to improve my own teaching skills as a teacher and deciding what needs to be improved and what is working. So that's very important. A lot of people I know have mentioned that teaching is a constant evolving thing. It should not be stagnant. It should always be changing and improving so that your students will get the best value for their time and for their money that they're paying to you for the lessons. So I hope that this video was helpful for you. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I post as often as I can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care.